Okay, it's Sunday, which means against my better judgment, it's time to go to Reddit, see what we can find in this type of scum and villainy. So I've been to the Overwatch University subreddit ahead of time, just scraped all the questions off the first couple of pages, and I'm going to answer them now with some footage of Dragon Ball FighterZ plays in the background, because it's a better game than Overwatch. And if you're wondering which side I'm on, just whichever side with the blueberry-flavored Android 21. That'll be me. So first up is, how do you shatter first and be successful? So this was actually talking about how do you not have your Earth Shatter get blocked, more than anything else, really. It was a little bit away from the actual title of the thread. So basically you're trying to read the enemy Reinhardt more than anything else, and just like, when is he gonna do something, and I can get my Earth Shatter past him. The way I usually do this is by waiting for him to use Fire Strike, because sooner or later he's gonna do it, and the Fire Strike is long enough to Earth Shatter past, as long as you have absolute belief in yourself. You can't hesitate when you use the Earth Shatter, or you're just gonna end up getting blocked, and then you'll be very sad. But so with most Reinhardt players, what you can really do is like watch them use Fire Strike, and think in your head, alright, I'm gonna count to 6, because that's the cooldown on Fire Strike, and he's gonna want to use Fire Strike pretty soon after that, right? Unless he already has his ultimate, in which case he might not. So then you're like, alright, he's gonna do it in like 6-ish seconds, and you just think to yourself, the second he starts doing it, the second he pushes that Fire Strike button, I'm gonna Earth Shatter him. And then the second you see him start, you Earth Shatter. You have to believe in yourself. You can't wait to absolutely confirm 100% it's Fire Strike, because if you wait until, like, the fire's leaving his hand, you're probably not gonna actually get it off before he can block you. So you have to read that he's gonna actually do it when you see him take the shield down. And that's the scary part, right? This is what, like, with a lot of Reinhardt versus Reinhardt, it's about trying to fake the other Reinhardt player out, also. So, if you think that the enemy Reinhardt player is going to do something like that to you, or he's going to wait for you to use Fire Strike, and then Earth Shatter, what you can do is just start swinging instead, and then, like, interrupt it very quickly and put your shield back up. This is, like, the easiest way to bait the Earth Shatter out of the other Reinhardt. Start swinging, and then just, like, don't really commit to it, what the fuck does that mean? Don't really commit to it, and then just start blocking halfway through the swing. If you do that enough times, eventually you're gonna block that guy's Earth Shadow. Yeah, so there's other things you can wait for instead. Like, if the enemy Reinhardt is one of those guys that really likes to run in and start swinging at you, like actually start, like, running up and smacking you through your shield, you can respond by just Earth Shattering the guy. But, hey, then, right, he could be trying to fake me out, because what if he's gonna run up to me, start swinging like he's gonna hit me through my shield, and then just start blocking instead? You see, it's very cyclical. All these problems feed back into themselves. If you're sufficiently far away from the Reinhardt player, and he starts using charge, you can Earth Shatter that as well. But you do need to be far enough away from the enemy Reinhardt. If he is, like, reasonably close to you, he's gonna get to you before you can actually use the Earth Shatter. Earth Shatter has a surprisingly long cast time. So if he is, like, not more than, like, 10 feet in front of you, you're not gonna get it off in time. Another easy way to do it is if you've got somebody on your team that's got a stun that you can coordinate with. So, like, McCree is the easiest one, because he can throw his stun over the shield. You see your McCree start running up to use the flashbang, you're like, alright, as soon as that boy gets stunned, here it comes. But that requires teamwork, and Lord knows we hate teamwork, don't we, in Overwatch? But, like, that's kind of the gist of it. Like, those are your main ways that you're gonna get to Earth Shatter first, and not have it be blocked. I mean, the other way that I usually approach the situation is, I'm very patient. I'll sit and just wait for that guy to use his Earth Shatter first, and then they almost immediately give the counter Earth Shatter to you the second you block it. Because most Reinhardt players are going to use their Earth Shatter, and then they're just going to start charging. Whether or not it hit, they're just like, I used Earth Shatter, it is time to commit to this fight now, and they charge. So you can usually, like, block their Shatter, and then just immediately Earth Shatter, because he's going to start running forward without really waiting to see if it actually connects. Once you get higher SR, they will wait to see if it connects, but even then, people are impatient. Who's got time to wait and see if your ultimate actually hits before you push the charge button? Am I right, fellow gamers? So that's what I usually do instead, is just kind of wait them out instead. Because if you just keep trying to bait them over and over again, eventually they're gonna crack, dude. Eventually they're like, this guy's gotta do something sooner or later. I'm a very patient man. I like to play very defensively when I'm playing Reinhardt like this, where I'll wait for that guy to hang himself instead, rather than me having to do anything. This is how I approach many different video game situations. With the fighting games, I like to play very defensively, just block and wait, and sooner or later, that guy's gonna do something unsafe, and then I'll just punish that instead. No need to fucking get him in the into a stun lock and try and, like, wait for him to not block low or something. No. I can just block and wait for him to go, I can't, this motherfucker. And they get mad. And the madder they get that you aren't giving them anything, the easier it is to get them. That's how I like to approach things. Anyway, those are kind of like your options for shattering, not getting blocked, is just trying to predict what the other Reinhardt's gonna do, and then countering it appropriately. Fire Strike, getting Earth Shattering when he uses Fire Strike is usually the easiest way to do it, though. So, next up is, how should Reaper position in a fight, and who is his priority? So you got two real ways of playing Reaper. So you've got the flanky, assassin-y style, in which case you are trying to get behind the enemy team somehow. This will usually be by teleporting behind them somewhere. Ideally, you're teleporting from somewhere they can't see you to somewhere that they also can't see you. You don't want them to know you're doing this, ideally. And then you just try and get to their backline, kill one of their supports, ideally, or one of their DPS. And if things go badly, you can just Wraith form through their team back to your team, and then, hey, you're safe again. Easy peasy. The other real way to play Reaper is more sort of brawly and skirmishery, where you're basically going in with your team's front line and just kind of hashing it out with their front line, in which case you're just kind of trying to blitz down whoever your tank has picked a fight with, and bully your way through. And then, once you've dealt with the front line, now the back line is even easier to kill. The way you'll do this will mostly depend on, like, what your team comp is. If your team comp is, like, Rein Zarya, it's usually going to be easier to get in there and start bullying people around, with the frontline style. Some people will tell you it's better to do that with Orisa. Maybe if you're playing with a good Orisa player. You won't find many of those, though, so, don't rely on that one too much. And you can do the assassin-y style basically any time with, like, your team comp. It's going to depend more on what their team comp is, because if they've got, like, a lot of crowd control or people that are, well, they're actually, like, employing teamwork. Ugh, disgusting thought, I know. If they're actually employing teamwork and it's hard for you to actually kill anybody because they help their supports, then... Did I start the same video again? I might have started the same video again, because I just got that guy with the exact same thing. I apologize if I did. No, I didn't. No, this is not the same one. I just got the guy, he just fell for the same thing twice. What was I saying? Yes, if they're actually, like, helping their supports, then assassinating people as Reaper can be harder. So in which case you might be better off going with your frontline and, like, brawling it out with them instead. You know, even if, basically, you, make the call on whether or not you think they'll let you be an assassin. If they will, then that's usually going to be the more successful route, just because if you kill their supports, they lose the fight, right? Like, it's kind of that easy with Overwatch a lot of the time. But if you don't think they're going to let you get away with that, you kind of just go with the other option as, like, the fallback as far as I'm concerned. Assassinating people is way cooler as Reaper and usually gets you better results, but the enemy team has to kind of let you do it to a certain extent. There's an element, like, you have to be skilled enough to do it as well. It's not, like, just the enemy team letting you do it, but you get the idea. You get the idea. So, next up is, what is the difference between pushing aggressively as a main tank and feeding? Well, to be honest with you, it's just if it works. More than anything else, right? Like, we could sit here and we can, like, you know, puzzle it out, like, what does it mean to feed and all that, but in reality, you can be doing something dumb as shit, and if it works, it wasn't feeding, right? The difference between pushing aggressively and feeding is just if it works at the end of the day. If it worked, it wasn't feeding. If it didn't work, it was feeding. So, the thing is that with main tanks, people usually don't know how to push aggressively, which is what results in feeding. To most people, like if they're playing Reinhardt, pushing aggressively means, I charge. I charge. Which more often than not results in getting clapped and feeding, right? Whereas the correct way to push aggressively is much more benign than that. It's holding your shield up and pushing W. That's it. Like, that's how you push aggressively, right? You physically start walking towards the enemy team. So I would rather that tank players play way too aggressively rather than way too passively, right? For two reasons. First off, if you play passively always, you never really learn how aggressive you can be. So it's better to play aggressively, like, all the time, at least when you're learning, because then that's how you learn. You play aggressively, you fuck it up, but you learn from it. And that's how you end up getting a really good understanding of your hero's limits, right? Because you go and you're like, alright, I fucked that one up. Alright, so next time I'm in a similar situation, I'll play a little bit less aggressively. Still fucked up, I'll play a little less aggressively again next time. And then sooner or later it works. And you're like, alright, that was like the optimal amount of aggression for that kind of situation. Right? But here's the other thing with playing aggressively versus playing passively, right? If you're playing aggressively, you're playing to win. If you're playing passively, you're playing to not lose. Which might sound like the same thing, but it's not, right? When you're playing to win, you're trying to actively, like, take control of the momentum of the game. You're trying to actually put yourself in a commanding position. Whereas if you're playing to not lose, that means you're scared. That means you're not trying to press your advantage, you're not trying to create openings, you're just trying to prevent the enemy team from having an opening. And that's not how you win games. To win a game, eventually you have to play aggressively, right? There's no other way to do it. If you're attacking, and you never play aggressively, you are never going to capture the other team's point unless they really fuck up, like really badly fuck up. So, this is the thing, this is how you end up in these situations where you're sat in front of the door on Hanamura, waiting for something to happen for 4 minutes, and you never even get through the choke point, right? Because you're playing passively as a tank, and you're waiting for, like, your DPS to kill 3 people, and then you go, alright, now we go in, now it's pretty free, right? That's not how you consistently win games as a main tank, unfortunately. Oh, I wish it would be that easy. Tragically, you have to push through the enemy gate eventually, right? Which, like, you just hold your shields up and push W and start trying to pressure the enemy team, right? And you play around like what they've got going as much as you can, right? So, people will be afraid to push through the doorway because they're afraid they're going to die. So you try and play around that situation as much as you can. The most common issue with like a hard choke point is there's a Mei on the other side of the doorway. So you walk through, you start getting walled off when you walk through, and then you end up being very sad, frown, cry, sad, bad, right? Yeah. I don't know what the fuck that was. I didn't know what to say, so just a bunch of words came out. So the way you play aggressively in that situation is you hold W, and you shield up, you walk through the gate, and then right as you think that Mei is going to wall you off, you walk backwards. Now you're on top of the wall instead of behind the wall, and you don't get killed anymore. Hooray. So then when her wall goes down, you hold W and right-click even harder than previously, because now the bad thing cannot happen to you, right? And you try and do this in a smart way, right? Like, you don't usually want to just march straight to the point. You're playing aggressively in that you want to march from cover to cover and advance onto the point like that. So, like Hanamura, the easiest way to push on the point is you wait for your opportunity, which is like you baited the Mei's wall out, either Rissa's reloading, whatever, you know. You're alright, now is my time. I see my opportunity. And you start pushing in aggressively. You walk into like the right side, the door on the right side. Alright, now I'm in cover, I'm in here. If my shield took damage, I can let it regenerate. Then we go out the other door, and we start marching towards the point. And then we approach from like the right-hand side. We can play around the cover over there as well, and then I can march straight onto the point and start contesting it. Marching straight through the gate, through the rock garden, up to the point is extremely hard to do. Unless like you get a lot of picks. You want to go from cover to cover. You're on like King's Row. You march yourself through the door, and you either go left or you go right around the statue. Either way, you know, you get through the gate. If you like go right, you can wait behind the statue for your shield to regenerate, come around it, start marching onto the point contested that way. Or you want to go up the left-hand side. Alright, am I going to get walled off? No, I don't think I'm going to get walled off because there's no Mei, you know. Is my team all here? Alright, Lucio, do you have speed boost? That'd be sick if you do as well. We're just gonna march straight through the left-hand side and pick a fight with them immediately, because that way we'll close the distance on them a lot faster. But we gotta be ready to, like, commit to that fight and get in there hard and fast, right? That's what she said, something like that. Pushing in aggressively isn't just slap the charge key. It's actually like bait cooldowns out of the Mei, out of the McCree, whatever, right? Force some resources out of them, start pressuring them with your DPS. Just cover the distance and start, like, run in there with your shield up, get Lucio to speed boost you in, march from cover to cover, and then get in there and pick the fight. You don't just charge through the gate, right? That's how you play aggressively. Hopefully that made sense. I feel like that got really rambling and incoherent. I do hope that that made sense. So next up is, this may sound dumb, but is there a good time to whip out Mercy's blaster? Yes, if you're using Valkyrie, and you spot somebody that's, like, off by themselves, like Hanzo, Widow, Ashe, McCree. McCree's a little scary. Zen, Ana, even Widow. Like, you can usually just, like, float right up to that guy with your blaster and start killing them if they're by themselves. And, like, it's really hard to kill Mercy during Valkyrie. So you'll usually kill them. Unless they're a god, in which case you'll, you know, be sad. I remember hearing that it's technically better when you're, like, doing shields, like you're fighting during the barrier war. It's technically better to use your blaster rather than damage boosts, like most DPS, because Mercy's pistol is like 100 DPS or something like that with no fall-off damage. I think that is technically better than damage boosting a lot of DPS. The thing is, though, that, like, you know, yeah, it might be more efficient for you to use your blaster to break the barrier than damage boost the Ashe to break the barrier, but if you're damage boosting the Ashe, she can one-shot somebody if she sees an opportunity, right? So that's the thing, is that, like, yeah, I don't know if that's even true. I haven't really, like, done the math on this one myself, because math is hard. But I remember being told that it's better to, shoot your pistol at most barriers, unless you've got, like, a bastion you can damage boost, or soldier, I think, was technically more efficient. But the trade-off is that, like, the people you're damage boosting can kill people as well as damage the barrier, and if you're damage boosting the person, it'll be easier for them to kill the person, right? So that's the thing there. But anyway, the best time is, like, to use your pistol is Valkyrie and you've spotted somebody isolated that you can go off and kill. If there's, like, a flanker and, like, your team are bad at shooting people, it can be better to just, like, pull out the pistol and start shooting at the Tracer Genji a lot of the time. If, like, the fight is largely wrapped up and, like, you're just trying to pick off, like, the last few stragglers, and it's, like, it can be better to bring out the pistol and shoot people as well. But, like, the most clear-cut good time to use the blaster is Valkyrie and I spotted somebody isolated. So I'm gonna go and bully that person now. They're gonna be very sad, frown, cry, bad, cry, sad, frown. So, next up is... how do you think original Symmetra would fare in today's Overwatch? So, I mean, the thing you have to remember about the original Symmetra is she was a support. So, if Symmetra was in the game right now as a support, when you're locked in to 222, that would not be good, brother. That would be pretty fucking bad. That would be... I think that Symmetra, just because she was in the support category, would be useless right now. People already be mad if you pick, like, a low output healer like Zen a lot of the time, right? Can you imagine if you picked a support that literally doesn't heal you? That would not go over well with people. There would be some utility, I think, in the extra shields that she could give people. Because, in general, we seem to be gravitating towards the point of, you know, the more health we have, the more we can try and bully the enemy team around with our large health pools. So being able to, like, put more health on our team would be pretty sick in that regard. But, again, she'd have to be a support. So, just on that basis alone, I think she'd be completely useless. And then you have to consider, like... God, the teleporter was her ultimate. Her E was just put 25 health on somebody. Oh, God, you know, like... The fact that her beam locked onto people was cool, but I mean, like... When we're playing such big, bulky characters, that doesn't really have that much utility to it. She'd be way worse versus barriers than she was then, because she didn't sap the life out of it. Original Symmetra would be really bad if she was transplanted into the game as it is today. I think just based off category alone, she would be, like, basically unplayable for at least the vast majority of the player base. And then the other things certainly don't help matters on top of that. So very bad is the summation. So next up is, what has happened with Genji? He just never feels appropriate to play anymore. And Genji just doesn't really have a lot going for him right now, just because there's, like, a lot of the currently really popular heroes are people that Genji would not want to deal with. You know, like, there's, like, Meis everywhere, there's Reapers everywhere, there's tanks everywhere. It's not great for him. There's less people he can bully around and pick on, basically. The more healthy the enemy team is, generally the sadder Genji is. Now, the one thing that Genji does still have going for him is that Nano Blade is still one of the scariest ult combos in the entire game, right? But outside of that, he doesn't have anything going for him. Like, Genji is basically hard carried by the fact that his ultimate is very good, and even better, like, when it's comboed with Ana, it's like an 11 out of 10 ultimate, right? Like, it's incredible. And just Dragon Blade by itself is like 8 out of 10, 9 out of 10. It's definitely on the upper tier of ultimates in the game. Genji, as a hero, is significantly worse than Dragon Blade is. So that's basically the only thing that makes Genji even, like, remotely playable, is the fact he has an exceptionally good ultimate. You know, he's one of those. There are heroes that are like that, where, like, you know, Dragon Blade is better than Genji, whereas conversely, like, Pharah is better than Barrage, right? Like, you know, it's this way with people. McCree is better than Deadeye. You know, so that's like the thing that carries him more than anything else. So, and like, you know, apparently we're gonna make like McCree a tank, you know, like we're gonna start doing some real goofy shit maybe in the near future. It doesn't help that like every hero they add also like makes Genji a little bit sadder, like, right? Like, so they put Bridget in the game, big sad for Genji. Then they put Wrecking Ball in the game, big sad for Genji. They put Sigma in the game, moderate sad for Genji, right? Then like Mei gets better, extremely big sad for Genji. It's hard for him, right? If we get to a point where dive comps are commonly played again, Genji will end up being better as a result, because he is good in a dive comp. The problem is, dive comps right now are not exceptionally popular. We'll see what happens in the future. I feel like, in general, Jeff would rather we played dive comps than a lot of what we've been doing recently. Definitely would rather see dive comps than goats. Goats is the only reason we got roll queue. And double shield, I think we'd take anything else for the most part, wouldn't we? So, you know, we'll see. You know, if dive comps come back into meta, then Genji will be better as a result. The meta currently just really doesn't favor Genji, and, you know, we'll see if we get there. There's just so many people around that Genji hates. Now, that being said, is Genji useless? Absolutely not. This comes up with Tracer and Genji fairly frequently. Oh, why would I play them over any other hero? I mean, you like them, is basically the reason. If you look at it strictly on paper, okay, yeah, there's no reason to play Genji over, like, Doomfist, right? But, if you like Genji more than Doomfist, fucking play Genji, brother. Who am I to stop you? It's a fucking video game. And you know what? When I play Overwatch, do you know what I see? I still see Genjis do really well. I still see Tracers do really well. I see everybody that is bad do well. Right? You just have to be good enough with the hero to do well with them. Skill with hero is greater than all other elements. If you are really good at a character, you are really good at a character, and you will learn to overcome their shortcomings through raw skill with the character. So, if you like Genji, fucking play Genji. Get really good at Genji and show people that, hey, just because Genji is worse on paper than anybody else doesn't mean I ain't gonna dunk on you with Genji. Right? So, there you go. So, next up, and this is the last question for this week, is how do I get better at counterpicking? So, to be honest with you, counterpicking is not really a particularly big aspect of this game. Right? It is one of those elements of the game that I think is dramatically oversold. Because, this was more true early on in the game, where, like, it was easier to just, like, try and change to a counter and deal with the situation like that. What we have learned as the game has gone on over time, which in hindsight is no great surprise, is that having a solid team comp is more important than counterpicking someone on the enemy team, unless that person is hard carrying the game. It is usually not, like, a lot of the time it's not even worth changing to a counter because you'll end up dropping ult charge, and it's usually better to just save your charge rather than change to counter somebody, right? Like, the person has to be doing a lot of work to really make it worth doing. It's better that you're playing a hero you know how to play and that is more cohesive with your team than changing to something to counter the enemy team. Usually, if you're going to change to counter somebody on the enemy team, you end up having to do something fairly drastic to your team comp that makes it not really viable as like a team comp anymore, right? The exception to this is like, you know, if you're in a situation where like Pharah is dunking on your team, it is pretty safe to like change to McCree or Widow to counter Pharah, right? Like they kind of slot into almost any team comp. But like, suppose you're playing a tank and you want to counter the enemy Genji, right? That means you're playing Winston. What team comp wants to be playing with Winston? Exactly, right? You'd really fuck up your team comp to do this, so you have to, like, really be able to just, like, that Genji better be doing just fucking biblical levels of work. Like, he's got to be out of control right now for that to be worth doing. So that's the thing with counterpicking, is that, like, yeah, it's still an element of the game, but at this point, more often than not, teams just run, like, near mirrors at each other, and that's kinda it. Like, it's very rare you'll see, like, different kinds of team comps playing against each other. You're usually, like, the same comp with a different DPS or two. In which case, like, what are you gonna do? Like, what are you gonna change to really counter that? Counterpicking is not really much of an aspect of this game. Sometimes it is, but, like, pretty rarely, to be honest with you. It's better that you're just, like, playing a hero that's cohesive with your team, unless there's, like, something drastic happening. Like, the times you'll see, like, big switches is basically just when there's, like, a Pharah on the enemy team, right? Like, this is usually the only thing that, in my experience, that prompts big team swaps. Because, like, one guy'll change to a hit scan, he won't be good enough to kill the Pharah, and then slowly the whole team morphs into hit scan heroes and, like, D.Va, right? Both the supports changed to Anna Baptiste. We've now got Widow and McCree both trying to do it, and we got D.Va over here as well, right? And still Pharah's killing us, right? This is the thing as well, is that for a counterpick to actually pay off, there's another step to this. You have to actually counter the person, right? Because another common experience is that someone will change to Winston to counter Genji, but what that entails is sitting next to your team, waiting for Genji to do something, or just zoning him off of your teammates, which is not as fun and engaging as diving on the enemy team is. So the Winston player doesn't do it, right? They just jump in on the enemy team. Meanwhile, Genji goes, sick, Winston jumped into my team, and then Genji resumes bullying your backline. So the counterpick did nothing. Similarly, if I change to Widow to counter Pharah, and I don't hit Pharah, I didn't counter Pharah very well, did I? So that's another element with it. But to be honest with you, like, counterpicking, I would not worry about it that much as far as like an actual intrinsic skill with the game. It's a dramatically oversold element that is very rarely worth worrying about that much. So, just worry about, like, learning how to play the heroes that you want to play instead. And then, like, you know, this is the thing as well, if you want to counterpick somebody, you basically have to play DPS. Supports and tanks don't get many options in regards to counterpicking. And a lot of the DPS play so drastically different to each other that it is, fairly difficult to find somebody that is well-versed in enough heroes to actually be able to counterpick a wide variety of people. So, there you go, that's my stance on counterpicking. It's not really an element of the game that much. So, that's the last question now. So, now I just gotta wait for this game to finish, which I started, even though I knew I didn't really have that much to say about this question, really, so, my bad. So, very exciting news for fighters, though. Something people have wanted for a while, since, like, the start of Season 2, we're about to go into Season 3, was for characters to have multiple assists. Because then you can have more team comps, right? Because the thing is right now, is that you don't really see very many team comps in fighters because beam assists are very good. Which usually means I'm going to pick Goku, right? Because he's got the beam, and he's like a really good character anyway. Or I'll pick like Boo, because Boo's assist is really good at Kid Boo, specifically, I should say. Because his assist is really good at locking you down. It has a tremendous amount of hit stun and block stun. Yamcha, same thing, and is incredibly fast, so he has a great assist. He's a bad character, but he has a great assist. What they're adding is every character's going to have 3 assists now that you can switch between. So that's great. So, like, Yamcha's going to have an assist. Krillin's going to be a good character. Krillin gets made fun of constantly because he has a shit assist. Because it literally comes on screen, he throws a rock at you, or he throws a sensu bean instead, depending on what direction you were holding. But one of his options is going to be a Kamehameha. Oh, fuck, that's incredible. Krillin's going to be so much better just because of that alone. So Frieza is going to be way better because he's going to get a more consistently easy-to-use assist. Blue Goku is going to have a better assist. It's going to do a great, tremendous amount of work for the team. Like, there's going to be so much more you can do comp-wise. They haven't shown us all of them, but just off of what we have seen, we know that Krillin's going to be way better. Frieza's going to be way better. Trunks is going to be better. He's going to beam assist. Tien is going to be way better also. It's going to be absolutely incredible for a lot of people. Tremendous news. Very exciting. Season 3 is going to be hopefully great. They're also nerfing snapbacks, which were a mistake. I'll not get too deep into that one, because you have to get fairly into the game, and the match just ended, so I'll avoid now talking to you about a game you probably don't play for 30 minutes. So, thank you very much for watching. If you did, if you have any questions, feel free to ask. I'm more than happy to answer. If you haven't already, you can join our Discord and ask questions more directly and have a conversation about them, or just shitpost with us. I've started streaming on Twitch, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, 8 p.m. EST till midnight EST. Wait, no, 11 p.m. EST. There's links to the channel in the description, and if you managed to make it all the way through the video and somehow still enjoyed it, please like the video and subscribe for more content of middling quality in the future, and I hope you found the video helpful.